What if I told you there's a tiny seed that people trusted so deeply they placed it next to kings in their tombs? Not because it smelled good, not because it tasted good, but because of what it did inside the body. Now here's the strange part. You've probably seen it before. Maybe on bread, maybe in a spice jar. You've seen it, but you never really looked at it. It has a name. Black seed, from a plant known as Nigella sativa. And somehow, something this small ended up in royal tombs. Because nothing about it looks powerful. And that's exactly why it's so easy to ignore. But your body doesn't care what something looks like. It responds to what something does. And this seed works in a way most modern things don't. Not fast, not loud, but quietly in the background, where most of your real health actually lives. Think about this for a second. That moment in the afternoon when your energy suddenly drops, even though you didn't do anything different. Or when your stomach feels slightly off, not painful, just not right. Or when your body feels a little more reactive than usual, and you can't explain why. Those small signals are where this seed has always been used, not when something breaks, but before that. And that's exactly why people kept it close for thousands of years, while today, most people walk right past it. What's surprising is this. For centuries, this wasn't considered alternative. It was simply normal. Only recently has modern science started to look closer at what's actually inside this seed. And what they're finding is beginning to explain why so many different cultures trusted it long before microscopes or laboratory ever existed. So the real question isn't just what this seed is, it's this. How did something so small earn such a lasting place in human history, and why did we stop paying attention to it? Before you go further, if you enjoy uncovering hidden healing knowledge like this, the kind that feels like it was quietly passed down through time, then take a moment to subscribe. Because what you're about to discover today is just one piece of a much bigger picture, and the next plant we explore might explain something your body has been trying to tell you. Now here's something subtle. You've come across this seed before, but not in a way that made you stop. It was just there, blended in, unnoticed. Because it doesn't compete for your attention. It doesn't look rare. It doesn't signal power. It doesn't promise anything dramatic. And that's exactly why it's so easy to miss. But your body doesn't work that way. Your body doesn't respond to what stands out. It responds to what repeats. Right now, your system is constantly adjusting. Your digestion shifts depending on what you eat. Your energy rises and falls throughout the day. Your immune system is always deciding what matters and what doesn't. And most of that happens quietly, until something feels slightly off. Not enough to stop you, but enough to notice. That's the part most people ignore, and because it's ignored, it repeats. Day after day, small shifts that slowly become your baseline. And this is where traditional systems saw something different. They didn't wait for something to break. They paid attention to that drift. And instead of reacting, they supported the system early, gently, consistently. That's where this seed comes in, not as something strong, but as something steady. And here's what makes this even more interesting. The more researchers study it today, the more it seems like those small, subtle effects were never random to begin with. And once you start looking at it that way, you don't just see a seed anymore. You start seeing a pattern. To understand why this tiny seed mattered so much, you have to step back into a time when medicine didn't come in bottles or labels. It came from observation, from watching the body, from noticing patterns, from remembering what worked. In ancient Egypt, This seed was not treated as something ordinary. Archaeologists discovered it inside burial sites, including the tomb of pharaohs. Now think about that for a moment. Only the most valuable and meaningful items were placed alongside rulers for the afterlife. Gold, jewelry, sacred objects, and among them, these small black seeds, which tells you something subtle but powerful. This wasn't just food. It wasn't just flavor. It was something people believed had lasting importance, even beyond life itself. As time moved forward, the knowledge didn't disappear. It traveled across regions, across cultures, across generations, and eventually, it found its way into one of the most influential medical texts ever written, the work of Avicenna. In the Canon of Medicine, he described black seed as something that supports the body's vitality, not by targeting one single issue, but by helping the body recover its natural balance. That idea might sound familiar to you now, because modern discussions are starting to circle back to the same concept. But back then, there were no microscopes, no chemical breakdowns, just careful observation. They noticed how the body responded over time, how energy changed, how resilience improved, how the system seemed to stabilize. And across different traditions, a similar pattern kept appearing. This seed wasn't used in extreme situations. It was used in everyday life. Quietly, consistently, almost like a ritual. Because the goal wasn't to fight the body, it was to support it. And that way of thinking is something we're only now beginning to rediscover. Instead of waiting for something noticeable to go wrong, people introduced small, consistent inputs. A few seeds or a small amount of oil taken regularly without expecting anything dramatic. And over time, something subtle would happen. Not a sudden change, but a shift you could feel if you paid attention. Your digestion might feel more predictable. Your energy wouldn't drop as sharply. Your body would feel less reactive to small changes. People didn't measure this. They didn't analyze it. They simply noticed that their body felt easier to live in. And because of that, they kept going. Which raises an interesting thought. If something so simple could create that kind of shift through daily use, what is it actually doing inside your body? When researchers looked closer at what's inside this seed, they kept finding one compound again and again, thymoquinone. Now here's why that matters. Inside your body, there are constant processes happening that you don't consciously feel, but you experience the results of them every day. One of them is inflammation. Your body uses it to protect and repair, but when that system stays slightly active for too long, you don't feel inflammation. You feel it as low energy, heaviness, slower recovery, a body that feels slightly out of sync. What compounds in black seed appear to do is help regulate that response, not shutting it down, but preventing it from staying unnecessarily active. There's also something called oxidative stress. This builds up from normal life, from food, from environment, from just being alive. Over time, it creates pressure inside your system. And instead of your body clearing that efficiently, it starts to accumulate. This seed contains compounds that support how your body handles that load. And then there's your immune system. Not something you feel directly, but something that decides how strongly your body reacts. Sometimes too much, sometimes not enough. What researchers are observing is that black seed helps that system respond more appropriately. So instead of forcing one function, it helps multiple systems stay closer to balance. Now, science is starting to explain why those outcomes may have happened. And when you connect those two perspectives, you begin to see the full picture forming. But what does that actually feel like? In your body? Not in theory, in real time. That's where the experience becomes personal. Imagine this. You start using black seed in a simple, consistent way, nothing extreme. Just a small amount, once a day. Now here's where it becomes real. Not in theory, not in explanation, but in what you actually start to notice when your body has time to respond. Day 1. At first, it feels almost uneventful. You take it, you go about your day, and nothing obvious stands out. But inside your body, subtle processes are already beginning. Your system is recognizing something new, something it can work with. Day 3. By now, small shifts may begin to appear. Not dramatic, but noticeable if you pay attention. Your digestion might feel a bit smoother, less unpredictable. Your energy might feel slightly more stable, not higher, just more consistent. It's the kind of change you almost question. Is that real, or am I imagining it? Day 7. This is where things start to feel clearer. Your body begins to feel more regulated, less reactive to small stresses, less up and down throughout the day. There's a sense of steadiness, like your system is finding its rhythm again. Not because something was forced, but because your body adjusted. And that's the key difference. This isn't about overwhelming your system, it's about supporting it until it starts doing what it was designed to do, more efficiently. When it comes to using black seed, simplicity matters more than anything else. You don't need complicated routines. You don't need large amounts. In fact, less done consistently tends to work better. A common approach is this. Take a small amount of black seed oil, about half a teaspoon, or a small pinch of the seeds themselves, taken once a day. Morning is often preferred, not because it's required, but because it becomes part of a routine you can stick to. Some people take it on its own. Others mix it with honey, creating a smoother, more balanced taste that's easier to take regularly. Now, imagine building this into your day. It takes less than a minute, but over time, that minute repeats. And those repetitions are where the real effect builds, because your body doesn't respond to what you do once. It responds to what you do consistently. And that's exactly how this seed has always been used. Now, even though this seed has been used for generations, there's something important to keep in mind. Natural doesn't mean unlimited. Your body works best with balance, not excess. When you introduce something new, even something gentle like black seed, your system needs time to understand it. So the best approach is simple. Start small. Give your body space to respond. Notice how you feel, not just immediately, but over a few days. Because sometimes the signals your body gives you are quiet. A slight shift in digestion, a subtle change in how steady your energy feels. Those small details matter. And adding more doesn't always mean better. In fact, too much can feel like noise to your system instead of support. There are also moments when extra care makes sense. If you're pregnant, if you're already taking medication, or if your body is dealing with something more complex, it's always a good idea to check with a professional before adding anything new, not out of fear, but out of respect for how unique your body is. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about pushing your system. It's about working with it. Step back for a moment and look at the full picture. Thousands of years ago, people didn't have the language we use today. They didn't talk about antioxidants, or immune signaling, or cellular stress. But they paid attention in a different way. They watched how the body responded over time. They noticed patterns. They saw which plants seemed to support balance, not instantly but gradually. And they kept those plants close, not because they had proof in a laboratory, but because they had something just as powerful: repeated observation. Now fast forward to today. Science breaks things down into compounds. It isolates. It measures. And when researchers examine Nigella sativa, they begin to see mechanisms that reflect those same patterns. Support, not force. Balance, not extremes. And maybe that's where the real value is. Not in choosing between ancient knowledge and modern science, but in noticing where they overlap. Because when two completely different systems arrive at similar conclusions, it's worth paying attention. Now think about this. If a seed this small, this easy to overlook, could carry this much history, this much quiet influence, what else has been sitting right in front of you, unnoticed? How many plants, roots, leaves, seeds were once part of everyday life, not as trends, but as essentials? And slowly, over time, they faded into the background. Not because they stopped working, but because the world around them changed. Faster solutions, stronger interventions, more noise. And somewhere in all of that, the quiet things became easy to forget. But they never disappeared. They're still here, waiting to be noticed again, waiting to be understood, not as something new, but as something remembered. So the next time you see something simple, something that doesn't demand attention, pause for a moment. Because sometimes, what looks the most ordinary is carrying a story your body already recognizes. And this is just one example. There are more, many more. And once you start looking, you begin to see them everywhere. Now I'm curious about something. When you think about your own body, those small moments, when your energy drops for no clear reason, when your digestion feels slightly off, when your body just doesn't feel fully in sync, do you recognize that? Or have you just gotten used to it? Do you think something this simple could actually make a difference over time? If this is something you're going to try, come back to this video in a few days and let me know what you notice. Not what you expect, but what you actually feel. And if you want to keep discovering more of these forgotten plants, the ones that work quietly but consistently, then make sure you're subscribed. Because the next one might connect to something in your body you haven't fully understood yet.